The rain falls steadily, soaking the earth and dampening the firewood carefully stacked near the modest home. Despite the moisture that makes it difficult to light the stove, there is a quiet urgency in the air, a need to prepare a warm meal, a ritual that binds family and sustains life. Inside, a grandmother tends to everyday tasks, and nearby, the younger generation eagerly steps in to assist. The sweeping is done, and attention turns to the market, where carefully gathered goods will be sold to provide for the household. Baskets are filled with aging fruit, too old to cook but still valuable for sale, alongside a few necessary tools, a knife, a water bag, to carry the day's provisions. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a determined team strategizes to apprehend criminals involved in illegal smuggling under the leadership of a figure named Mao. Plans are coordinated meticulously, with roadblocks set to block any escape routes. Forces move in concert from north and south in a calculated effort to surround and capture the suspects without risk. Orders are given with precision, emphasizing safety for both officers and civilians. The operation reflects the weight of responsibility borne by those maintaining law and order, balancing force with care and urgency with control. Back in the domestic sphere, attention returns to the well-being of elderly family members. The grandmother suffers an injury, the purple and swollen skin indicating a painful bruise, leaving uncertainty about whether the pain extends to the bone beneath. Concerned family members provide gentle support and medical care, applying ointments and ensuring rest. The grandmother's ability to walk remains, but assistance is offered nonetheless, seen in acts of carrying her home and fetching a tree to plant, a symbol of nurturing and renewal. Conversations occur filled with tenderness, worry, and resolve, demonstrating the intimate care woven through family life. The landscape of daily existence is marked by labor and hustle. The tasks of selling produce like corn and fruit at the market continue, often accompanied by the chatter of buyers and fellow sellers, the occasional trading of sums, and the movement of goods. Such moments are imbued with fatigue and grit, the physical strain of constant activity underscored by the need to make every dong count towards survival. In this environment, social dynamics come into play. Judgments help shared experiences, forming an intricate tapestry of rural life bound by mutual dependence and unspoken understanding. Alongside these threads runs a darker narrative, the pursuit of truth and justice amid mystery and confusion. A young woman named Tieu faces questions of identity and belonging, tangled in rumors and shattered memories. Her biological connections are obscured, generating pain and uncertainty about parentage and self. The search for truth takes on urgency, complicated by intercepted messages and coordinated efforts by authorities. The lines between past and present blur as she struggles to remember amid suspicion and isolation, caught between the desire to know and the risk of rejection. Encounters with law enforcement blur roles and identities. A disguised officer moves carefully among genuine civilians, balancing the demands of his secret mission with human compassion. An episode unfolds where a woman is found fainted, suffering from a severe headache, prompting concern and urgent action. The medical journey that follows is steeped in tension, interactions tinged by recognition and disguise, the looming threat of exposure, the fragile hope of healing. Moments of vulnerability underscore the human cost lurking beneath larger societal dramas. Nature itself plays a quiet but potent role throughout. The sounds, smells, and textures of the rural environment envelop daily lives, shaping rhythms and moods. The ducks lowering their knees, the ripe fruit heavy in the basket, the cold rain soaking through clothes, all compose sensory details enriching the narrative. These elements ground the unfolding stories in place and time, reminding that human struggles are deeply intertwined with the natural world. Family ties, though tested by hardship and complexity, remain central. The bond between grandmother and grandchildren is palpable in acts of assistance and concern. Household duties, often overwhelmingly shouldered by young women, encompass sweeping, cooking, caring for the ill, and managing the intricate logistics of rural life. The demanding physicality of these roles blends with the emotional labor of sustaining hope and connection through adversity. Market scenes pulse with vitality and challenge. Negotiating prices, managing products, and responding to sudden crowds reveal the agility required to maintain livelihood. Financial transactions are not only economic, but social acts, a sharing of trust, reciprocity, and survival. Even in limited means, the desire to contribute and connect shines through, fostering a sense of agency within constrained circumstances. The juxtaposition of crime investigation and domestic care within the story highlights contrasting facets of human experience: public duty versus private intimacy, danger confronting vulnerability. The meticulous planning of law enforcement efforts runs parallel to the tender ministrations within family homes, illustrating the diverse forms of responsibility and courage enacted daily. The questions of identity and belonging faced by Tieu add layers of psychological and social complexity. Loss of memory and ambiguity about parentage provoke emotional turmoil, driving a quest for truth complicated by external suspicions and personal fears. The interplay of memory, family, and societal acceptance underscores universal themes of selfhood and community. Throughout these narratives, acts of kindness helping carry an elderly relative, packing goods at the market, offering comfort in moments of distress, illuminate the human capacity for empathy amid difficulty. These gestures, small yet profound, weave together individuals into webs of care that sustain beyond hardship. The overall story balances the ordinary and extraordinary, daily struggles of sustenance and survival alongside moments of revelation, confrontation, mystery, and healing. It paints a rich tableau of rural Vietnamese life, where family, community, nature, and the state intersect in complex rhythms. The story invites reflections on resilience, connection, and the unspoken labor binding generations. It reveals how amid rain, bruises, rain-soaked firewood, and stolen moments of joy, life perseveres, driven by love, duty, and the search for truth. Narratives unfold simultaneously in kitchens and fields, marketplaces and police stations, fraught with tension yet alive with hope. The rural landscape unfolds as a complex tapestry where nature and human labor are deeply intertwined. The seasonality of farming governs the tempo of life, planting, nurturing, and harvesting align with rains and sun cycles. Fields stretch across hills and valleys, populated by crops that have sustained generations. This land is both livelihood and legacy, demanding tireless work while offering the promise of sustenance and continuity. Farmers rise early to meet the day, their hands in soil, negotiating a relationship with nature that is both nurturing and precarious. Agricultural modernization and sustainability efforts have begun weaving into this traditional tapestry. Government initiatives encourage eco-friendly farming practices, diversification of crops, and integration into broader markets. These initiatives attract investment and technologic innovation, yet demand adaptation from villagers accustomed to inherited methods. The tension between preserving cultural heritage and embracing modern efficiency shapes community conversations and decisions. Younger generations see new opportunities but also confront challenges to identity and belonging. Women especially play pivotal roles in this evolving rural society. Rural Vietnamese women are dynamic agents shaping economic and social transformation. They engage in diversified livelihoods, farm work, small-scale enterprises, handicrafts, and increasingly tech-enabled activities. Women's cooperatives and community groups foster knowledge exchange, support micro-entrepreneurship, and advocate for rights. Women balance traditional family responsibilities with expanding roles as economic contributors and community leaders. Their resilience and innovation are vital to rural vitality. Social infrastructure, though improving, remains uneven. Schools, healthcare facilities, and transportation connect villages to regional centers. Yet many areas struggle with limited access and resources. The government's ongoing rural development programs aim to enhance these systems, recognizing infrastructure as foundational to poverty reduction and quality of life improvement. Community participation in these programs empowers locals, granting voice to prioritize regional needs while navigating bureaucratic complexities. Families form the core of rural social fabric, but are diverse and changing. Extended families often co-reside or maintain close support networks, sharing labor and resources. However, migration patterns, young adults moving to urban centers for education or work, reshape family compositions and dynamics. Remittances play crucial economic roles, sustaining household consumption and investment in agriculture or education. This migration also creates emotional distances and pressures on those remaining, especially women and elderly relatives. Challenges persist, including vulnerability to climate fluctuations, market volatility, and poverty pockets. Environmental degradation threatens soil quality and water resources, demanding sustainable adaptations. Economic precarity makes investment risky, limiting advancement opportunities. Health issues, especially among older populations and children, strain community capacities. Social disparities and gender inequalities linger despite progress, calling for targeted policy interventions. Cultural traditions and festivals remain vibrant, framed with renewed significance in contemporary contexts. Events like Tet and Vu Lan serve as moments of communal bonding and cultural affirmation amidst change. These occasions embody values of respect, remembrance, and renewal, while adapting to modern schedules and economic realities. Food, ritual, and storytelling during festivals reinforce identity and intergenerational continuity. Education is a focal point of hope and transformation. Schools increasingly incorporate technology and new pedagogies, aiming to uplift rural youth and close urban-rural divides. Families prioritize schooling as pathway to improved future prospects, despite economic challenges. Vocational programs and adult education initiatives support skills development, enhancing employability beyond agriculture. Health awareness and service outreach are expanding, leveraging community health workers and mobile clinics. Preventive care and maternal child health receive emphasis, aligning with national health goals. Traditional medicine blends with modern health practices, reflecting cultural pluralism. Public education campaigns on sanitation, nutrition, and disease prevention engage villagers actively. Community organizations, including women's unions, youth groups, and cooperatives, are central actors in rural development. They facilitate social cohesion, advocacy, and economic collaboration. Their role in articulating local needs and implementing grassroots solutions complements governmental efforts. Capacity building and leadership training empower community members to participate effectively in decision-making. Technology adoption is increasing incrementally. Mobile phones and internet access provide new channels for communication, information, and commerce. E-commerce platforms open rural producers to wider markets, expanding income potential. Digital literacy programs aim to bridge digital divides and support entrepreneurial ventures. Yet infrastructure limitations and affordability issues temper rapid penetration. The rural economy diversifies gradually beyond staples into high-value crops, agro-processing, and tourism. Value chains expand with improved logistics and quality standards. Smallholder farmers and rural entrepreneurs navigate new market demands, balancing tradition and innovation. Sustainable practices gain traction, recognizing environmental stewardship as business imperative. Environmental awareness grows amid visible climate impacts. Community-led conservation, reforestation, and adaptive farming practices address erosion, floods, and drought. Linking ancient ecological wisdom with scientific research fosters locally appropriate solutions. Education campaigns emphasize resilience and stewardship as shared responsibilities. Rural social life remains enriched by arts, crafts, music, and oral traditions. These cultural expressions celebrate heritage and create opportunities for cultural tourism. Preservation efforts engage youth, ensuring transmission across generations. Festivals serve as stages for performance and communal identity reaffirmation. Political participation and governance in rural areas strengthen with decentralization initiatives. Local governments and community groups become more responsive and accountable. Citizen engagement fosters transparency and resource allocation aligned with local priorities. Challenges of capacity and corruption are addressed through reforms and capacity building. Gender equity gradually improves but requires sustained attention. Programs to combat domestic violence, expand women's economic rights, and enhance political representation advance. cultural attitudes evolve incrementally, influenced by education and exposure to diverse perspectives. The totality of rural life in Vietnam in 2025 is dynamic, anchored in tradition yet reshaped by globalization, technology, and policy reforms. The resilience of individuals and communities shines through multiple dimensions of change. This landscape forms the backdrop for stories like lytutieus, young women whose lives exemplify both continuity and transformation. Their struggles and successes illuminate broader patterns of rural development and social change. The complexity of rural existence defies simplistic narratives. It weaves hardship with joy, vulnerability with strength, constraint with opportunity. Policymakers, civil society, and communities themselves recognize that sustainable development hinges on integrating these complexities holistically. In understanding this evolving context, greater appreciation arises for the courage and creativity of rural Vietnamese people. Their efforts sustain not only themselves, but also the nation's economic potential, cultural wealth, and social fabric. This detailed portrayal invites deeper engagement with rural realities, inspiring informed, empathetic responses to ongoing challenges and opportunities. It underscores the urgency and promise inherent in supporting vibrant, resilient rural communities well into the future. Part 2 of this story unfolds within the evolving rural landscape of Vietnam in 2025, where centuries-old traditions coexist with the steady pulse of modernization, and where people like lytutien navigate a life marked by both challenge and resilience. The villages spread across fertile hills and lowlands, dotted with rice paddies, vegetable gardens, and fruit orchards. Farmers rise before dawn, greeting the day with a steadfast determination born of a deep connection to the earth and a vision for their families' futures. Lytutien lives immersed in this world, surrounded by the natural cycles that govern agricultural life. Planting and harvesting follow seasonal rhythms shaped by monsoon rains and the sun's passage, with each phase demanding different labors and hopes. The land is her livelihood and her heritage, a source of sustenance and struggle. Hands weathered by toil skillfully tend to tomatoes, maize, and other crops, nurturing life from soil that holds memories of ancestors and promises of renewal. Modern developments ripple through this rural fabric. Government programs promote sustainable farming methods, eco-friendly fertilizers, pest management, and water conservation to preserve soil health and increase yields. Training sessions, often led by agricultural extension workers, reach villages, introducing new techniques and market knowledge. Smallholders begin to integrate with broader supply chains, empowered by access to mobile phones and digital marketplaces that expand horizons beyond village confines. Women's roles continue to evolve amid these changes. In addition to traditional care and farming duties, rural women increasingly engage in small-scale entrepreneurship and cooperative ventures. They participate actively in management of family finances, education of children, and community governance. Women's unions and grassroots groups organize skill-building workshops, microfinance opportunities, and awareness campaigns on health and rights, fostering empowerment and solidarity. lytutieu's life reflects this expanded realm of opportunity and responsibility, blending ancestral roles with modern economic participation. Community relationships are alive with complexity and care. Extended families often serve as primary social safety nets, pooling labor and resources. Intergenerational households share knowledge and support the young and the elderly alike, reinforcing bonds of obligation and affection. Migration trends complicate these ties, with many youths moving to cities for work while sending remittances home. Family structures fluctuate and adapt. For those left behind, especially women and children, the communal fabric offers vital but sometimes strained support. Infrastructure development gradually improves rural access to education, health services, and markets. New roads reduce travel times. Mobile clinics extend medical care. Schools expand with upgraded facilities and curricula. Yet disparities persist, as some remote hamlets face challenges in connectivity and resource availability. Local leaders work with government and NGOs to address gaps, fostering community participation in decision-making to ensure needs are met. Cultural traditions shape identity and social cohesion. Festivals like Tet and Vu Lan focus community celebrations on family unity and remembrance, reinforcing values of gratitude and continuity. These occasions blend ritual and joy, anchoring individuals in collective memory despite evolving social patterns. Artistic expressions, folk songs, dances, crafts, flourish alongside emerging media, sustaining cultural vibrancy and intergenerational connections. Economic precarity defines many rural lives. Fluctuating crop prices, climate variability, and limited employment opportunities compel families to diversify incomes creatively. Households cultivate home gardens, raise livestock, and engage in rural crafts. Women like lytutieu lead with ingenuity, balancing multiple roles while saving and investing for their children's futures. Microcredit schemes and cooperative enterprises enable some to expand small businesses, gradually lifting standards of living. Environmental challenges weigh heavily. Deforestation, soil erosion, and water management issues demand both traditional knowledge and scientific innovation. Community-led reforestation, sustainable farming, and waste management efforts cultivate environmental stewardship critical to long-term sustainability. Awareness programs educate villagers on climate adaptation and resource protection, emphasizing the interdependence of ecological and human health. Health and education are prioritized pathways toward opportunity. Schools serve as centers of learning and socialization, preparing youth for uncertain futures. Health initiatives focus on maternal child care, chronic disease management, and sanitation improvements. Collaboration between health workers, educators, and families cultivates supportive environments despite resource constraints. Lifelong learning and skills development equip villagers to navigate changing economic and technological landscapes. Governance at local levels strengthens with decentralization and community engagement. Village leaders and women's group representatives advocate for participatory planning and transparent resource management. Capacity-building initiatives support effective leadership and accountability. This enhances trust between officials and citizens, nurturing cooperation critical for rural development success. Technology permeates daily life gradually but decisively. Mobile phones advance connectivity, enabling communication, information access, and e-commerce participation. Internet access in rural communities, though variable, expands learning and market opportunities. Digital literacy programs promote inclusive technology use, addressing disparities and fostering innovation in traditional contexts. Gender equity progresses amid entrenched norms. Campaigns against domestic violence, efforts for women's economic empowerment, and increasing political inclusion shift social paradigms. Women's voices gain recognition in family and community decisions. Youth attitudes evolve with education and exposure, supporting broader cultural transformation. The rural economy diversifies with emerging sectors like agro-processing, tourism, and handicrafts complementing staple farming. Value-added production enhances incomes and market reach. Partnerships with urban and international buyers stimulate quality improvements and product innovation. These developments pave pathways for sustainable and inclusive growth, supporting livelihoods and preserving cultural identity. Social life maintains rich customs and collective practices. Communal meals, storytelling, religious observances, and festivals animate village life, fostering belonging and intergenerational connection. Churches, temples, and communal houses serve as centers for spiritual and social gathering, nurturing resilience and cultural pride. Migration trends, both internal and international, reshape demographic balances and family dynamics. Returnees bring new skills and aspirations. Remittances finance education and investment, yet separation strains traditional bonds. Social support systems evolve to address challenges faced by migrant families remaining in rural areas. The landscape of rural Vietnam in 2025 emerges as one of dynamic interplay between tradition and modernity, challenge and opportunity, individual agency and communal ties. Villages harness natural resources, cultural heritage, and adaptive strategies to navigate a globalizing world while nurturing identity and cohesion. Lytutieu's story is embedded within this broader panorama. Her struggles, labor, and love mirror the lived realities of millions transforming rural life. Her experience illustrates the delicate balances struck daily between survival and aspiration, collective support, and personal resolve. This detailed exploration invites deeper understanding and empathy for the complexity of rural existence. It highlights the ongoing need for inclusive policies, community engagement, and sustainable practices to foster equitable development that honors culture, protects livelihoods, and empowers individuals. Through vividly drawn details of environment, economy, culture, and social relations, the narrative reflects the resilience and creativity animating Vietnam's rural renaissance. It underscores the profound human endeavors shaping farms, families, and futures amid uncertainty. The year 2025 marks a pivotal moment in Vietnam's rural development history. A landmark National Agricultural and Rural Survey undertaken during this time offers an unprecedented comprehensive assessment of rural households, farming practices, labor structures, and socioeconomic conditions across the country. This large-scale census, encompassing millions of households, provides invaluable data guiding policy formulation aimed at sustainable, inclusive, rural advancement. The survey captures the multiplicity of rural livelihoods, from subsistence farming and small-scale market production to emergent agribusiness models, reflecting both enduring traditions and innovative adaptations. In the verdant fields under changing skies, farming remains a cornerstone of rural life, but the role of agriculture is evolving. Farmers skillfully combine ancestral knowledge with modern scientific techniques introduced through extension services and government programs. These include sustainable land and water management, organic fertilization, pest control, and crop diversification. Shifts toward ecological consciousness guide these transformations, fostering resilience against climate vulnerabilities, increasingly impacting rural communities. The farmer's relationship with the land adapts, balancing production goals with conservation ethics, a dance of tradition and innovation played daily beneath the sun. Villages are vibrant social ecosystems, shaped by enduring cultural values and emerging economic aspirations. Family continues as the fundamental unit, often extending across multiple generations dwelling together or in close proximity. These kinship networks provide safety, labor sharing, emotional sustenance, and social identity, serving as buffers against economic uncertainties and social upheaval. However, rising workforce migration to urban areas introduces complexity, as remittances supplement rural incomes, but also present emotional and logistical challenges. This dynamic reshapes household composition and compels adaptations in care responsibilities, especially evident among women and the elderly remaining behind. Women have become pivotal agents of rural socio-economic transformation. Beyond their traditional roles as caregivers and field laborers, women increasingly engage in entrepreneurship, cooperatives, and community leadership. Empowerment programs, microfinance access, education and skills training expand opportunities, enabling many to effectively manage household finances and lead income-generating ventures. Women's unions play crucial roles fostering solidarity, advocacy, and capacity building. Their combined domestic and economic responsibilities amplify the strength and complexity of the rural female experience in 2025. Infrastructure improvements support this socio-economic evolution. Enhanced transportation links integrate remote villages with regional markets, facilitating agricultural commercialization and access to services. Educational institutions benefit from upgraded facilities and curricula emphasizing both academic and vocational training designed for local economies. Healthcare delivery reaches farther into rural landscapes via mobile clinics, community health workers, and preventive education, addressing persistent health disparities and raising quality of life. Information technology, ranging from mobile connectivity to digital agriculture platforms, gains foothold, connecting villagers to broader knowledge and commerce. Economic diversification mitigates vulnerabilities of monocrop dependency. Households integrate livestock raising, horticulture, agro-processing, handicrafts, and ecotourism into mixed livelihood strategies, providing multiple income streams. Smallholder farmers respond to market signals, innovating both in production and marketing with government support. Informal credit systems coexist alongside formal financing, sustaining entrepreneurship despite periodic risk and uncertainty. Environmental challenges intensify with climate change impacts manifesting in irregular rainfall, droughts, floods, and soil degradation. Community-based environmental stewardship grows, combining traditional ecological knowledge with scientific approaches. Reforestation, watershed management, sustainable farming practices, and waste reduction form key pillars in local adaptation. Education campaigns mobilize awareness and action, embedding conservation within everyday life and reinforcing reciprocal bonds between people and nature. Cultural life endures with vibrancy, blending ritual, music, art, and communal storytelling. Festivals such as Tet and Vu Lan reaffirm spiritual and familial ties, incorporating modern interpretations that accommodate shifting demographics and economic realities. Artistic heritage thrives, supported by local preservation initiatives and increasingly accessible media. These cultural expressions nourish identity, cohesion, and intergenerational continuity, anchoring rapid social change within a steady cultural compass. Governance reforms deepen citizen participation and enhance transparency. Local elected bodies and women's groups assume enhanced roles in planning and resource allocation, harnessing community know-how and priorities. Decentralization fosters responsiveness and accountability, addressing long-standing gaps in rural public service delivery. Civil society organizations collaborate with governmental agencies to implement programs aligning with grassroots needs and sustainable development goals. Technology adoption accelerates, transforming communication, market access, and service delivery. Mobile phones and internet connectivity empower villagers to access information, financial services, health advice, and e-commerce platforms. Digital literacy programs target equitable inclusion, recognizing that technology can deepen divides if accessibility or skills lag. Successful integration of technology enhances efficiency and opens new economic possibilities, balancing innovation with cultural sensitivity. Gender equity progresses steadily. Campaigns addressing domestic violence, promoting women's political participation, and expanding girls' education contribute to a gradual cultural shift. Women increasingly voice economic and social agency, although traditional gender roles remain influential. Youth attitudes evolve toward inclusivity and gender respect, propelled by education and exposure to global norms. Migration and remittance flows reconfigure rural family economies and social networks. Seasonal and long-term migration supplement incomes but introduce emotional and care challenges. Returning migrants bring skills and new expectations, contributing to social dynamism. Policy efforts seek to balance urban-rural connectivity with support for receiving communities. The interplay of these diverse facets, the natural environment, agricultural evolution, socioeconomic shifts, cultural vitality, governance transformation, technological integration, and gender dynamics, creates a textured, dynamic portrait of rural Vietnam in 2025. The ongoing process is neither linear nor uniform, but marked by diversity, contestation, and creativity. Within this multi-layered context, the lived experience of individuals and families emerges as an essential dimension. Stories such as lytutien news provide vivid insight into how macro-level changes shape everyday realities. The cyclical labor of farming, the navigation of markets, the care of elders and children, the celebration of milestones, and the grappling with identity and social belonging manifest the intimate human stakes of structural transformation. Lytutieu's persistent efforts to nurture her son and sustain her family entwine with broader societal currents. Her resilience exemplifies the adaptability and strength required to negotiate poverty, marginalization, and opportunity simultaneously. The tenderness extended to family members, the engagement with community networks, and the embrace of evolving roles narrate a compelling human story embedded in shifting rural Vietnamese life. This comprehensive picture emphasizes the importance of multidimensional policy responses that integrate economic, social, environmental, and cultural strategies. Sustainable rural development depends on inclusive, participatory approaches recognizing the complexity of rural livelihoods and the diversity of human experiences. Recognizing the agency and aspirations of women, youth, and marginalized groups is paramount. Empowering communities through education, health, infrastructure, and economic opportunities must complement efforts to preserve cultural heritage and foster environmental resilience. Digital transformation, urban-rural linkages, and good governance form critical sectors in this endeavor. The future of rural Vietnam hinges on balancing tradition and innovation, preserving identity while embracing change. Stories like Lytutieu's resonate as both testimony and inspiration, affirming that despite challenges, hope and progress are vital and achievable. The concluding chapter invites reflection on human connection, cultural continuity, and the intricate fabric of rural life. It showcases how within small farms, crowded markets, quiet homes, and vibrant festivals unfold the grand narratives of nationhood, belonging, and survival. The texture of this rural life is complex, stitched with joy, sorrow, hardship, triumph, and love, embodying the enduring spirit of Vietnam's countryside in a new era. Lytutieu's unfolding journey epitomizes this rich, evolving tableau of rurality, where personal and collective destinies intertwine amidst the planted fields and pathways of daily life.